The gentleman will now recognize the gentleman from Georgia, Mr. Carter, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Admiral and Mr. Roth, for being here. Appreciate it very much. Admiral, let me ask you, would you agree that having expert and standardized training for TSA screeners like we have at FLETC, the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center in Glencoe, Georgia, that's very important to make sure that we have personnel that's fully prepared to keep our airports safe?
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
I bring that up because the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center in Glencoe, I know you've been there, and
Yes,
of course it's in my district, and I'm very proud of that. I look at that as being one of the areas that we are getting right in the federal government. I mean, to go down there, and I want to invite my colleagues here on this committee particularly to visit, and we'll try to schedule a trip down there for everyone to see just what an outstanding job they are doing down there in the way of training. And I mention that because I want to make sure that we're not confusing these well-trained employees with the problem that we're having that I consider to be more in performance and more in management in particular. When you talk about having a shortage of employees, that's not because they're not well trained. That's a management problem. Exactly. When you talk about employees not showing up on a holiday and having a shortage during the busiest travel time, that's a management problem. So I just want to make sure that we understand that there's a difference here, that they are being trained well. FLETC is a great facility. It's used by over 94 different agencies, and so training's not the problem. The problem here is a management problem and a performance problem.
Well, thank you for that. And thank you for recognizing that our frontline workforce, I believe it to be one of the best in the world. I really do. I've seen their dedication. I've talked to them. I've been down to FLETC multiple times now. I meet with as many of the classes as I can when I go down there, and that is a world-class institution, which is why I was really excited about the opportunity to stand up a full-time academy down there. And Connie Patrick, who runs that outfit, is one of the best in the world.
Absolutely.
And we're looking forward to continuing to develop that. My goal is ultimately to train every single employee of TSA through that academy.
Good.
That's the plan in the future, and we've got a pretty aggressive plan, a pretty ambitious plan. But I'm getting a lot of support from Congress on that, and I really appreciate that.
Well, I just want to make sure we differentiate between the training portion of it and the management.
Yes, sir. That's exactly right.
Because we obviously, as you can tell, a lot of upset people here today, and obviously we have a management problem at TSA, and we're depending on you to get that straightened out.
And that's what I've been tackling. Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, let me pivot for just a second and talk about something else, a different subject. A couple of weeks ago, we had some employees of TSA here who testified before us. So you're familiar with that, and they talked about the involuntary directed reassignments. Some of these that we had to testify before us had gotten excellent marks, and in fact had gotten awards and being recognized for their outstanding performance, their job performance, and yet they were reassigned against their will. And the thing that concerns me is not just that the upheaval of having to move somewhere else for these people. Obviously, that is a very trying time for families and for employees, but the cost in it. What we were told is that their relocation costs were well over $100,000. Is this really happening?
I believe it did happen. I share the same concerns you do. I stopped that policy completely. We don't do directed reassignment. Now, that said, I think it's important for an operating agency to have the ability to move people periodically. You have to do that. I mean, it's a security agency.
And I think they understand it, but what their concern was is they were being disciplined as a result.
No, and that's what my concern was too. So I put some very strong controls over that process. I'll share with you the nature of those controls so that we don't take up too much committee time. But I will tell you that I'm as concerned as you are about that. Those reports greatly distress me. I stopped that process. It's not going to happen again.
Good. So we can take your word that it's over with.
Yes, sir. You can absolutely take my word on that.
Okay. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And again, thank you for your dedication to FLETC because, and again, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to try to get that together, but I want everyone to understand what a great facility this is. This is an example of the federal government working.
Yes, sir.